Here's another edition of the Honor Series of the Citi Business Festival 2025. It's powered by your favorite radio and television stations, 97.3 Citi FM and Channel 1 TV. We're on the wings of Absa Bank Ghana Limited, MTN Ghana, as well as Zonda Tech Ghana. We are in our second week trying to delve into the agricultural sector, which is at the heart of the national economy. Today, we get a sense of what the seed and agri-input industry is all about. I am Neil Latte. Do stay with us. When we come back, I'll introduce my guest and set the ball rolling. Many thanks indeed for your time. Like I mentioned, today we are trying to get a sense of the seed and agri-input industry. How do these elements shape, food security, production, and even help us reduce our dependence when it comes to imports? My guest is Dr. Amos Rutherford Azinu. He's founder of Legacy Crop Improvement Center. He describes himself as a seed business executive as well as a plant breeder. Welcome, Amos, to the show.
Thank you
for having me. Since last year when we met at, the Agri Forum, when we were talking about understanding the agri value chain, you made some really striking, statements there. And I want us to begin on that note by referring you to some of the things that you said. So, for example, if I recall, you said the value of any industry lies in the value chain.
Exactly.
And that if we can do agri, we can do it without, land and fertilizer, but we can't do it with seed because seed is at the heart of food security. I found that very intriguing. And what did you mean when you said all those things?
Well, thank you, Annie. Let me begin from here. I said we can farm without land, fertilizer, but you cannot farm without seed. Because basically seed form the foundation of everything we do in the crop production. Even if you are in animal rearing or you are rearing pigs, they depend on crops. And those crops are produced through seed. So there's nothing you can do. These days they are talking of aeroponic, where people are farming in water, people are farming in the air without necessarily using the natural soil that we used to know. So that is my basis of forming that statement to the people. And the reason why I said the value of every business is the value chain, not in one part, is that agriculture is a value chain.
Indeed.
We shouldn't treat it as a block, as we used to do, where somebody is saying, oh, I'm a potato farmer or I'm a cabbage farmer. So he's only concentrating on the farming, but doesn't know what's happening in the market, logistics, and other. It's a whole chain. You need to look at it in comprehensive manner and know that, okay, if I produce this thing, this is where it goes, and this is what happened to it, so that you'll be able to de-risk those activities along the value chain. And you'll be able to get benefits through the value chain so that you can actually be profitable in the
amazing. Our agri sector is often linked to the issue of low productivity. But with this low productivity challenge, how much of it is linked or related to poor seeds and even poor agri input, for example?
So let's take it from this way. When God created the earth, the land is immovable.
Yeah.
Land is not increasing in size. However, the human population is increasing. So in the past, people used to do what they call shitting cultivation, where you cultivate a particular land for a period of time. Then you move to another area and you return back. These days, because we are competing for land for a lot of issues, you don't have an opportunity to do that. But if you used to plant 1 acre and you used to have, let's say, 10 bags of it, the issue now is that how can we get 20 bags, 50 bags from the same land space we are using to feed the increasing population? So most of the time we rely on a poor seed, thinking that, okay, if I grow anything, I will be able to get back.
Once you put it in the soil,
once you put it in the soil, I give it fertilizer or rain or it generates. No, that's not the point. The point is that seed carry a certain, what we call the breeders call genetics. And that genetic determine its potential. So every seed has its own genetic, and the seed have to also perform in a certain environment. So there are times farmers are putting the seed in the wrong environment, expecting a better result. It won't happen.
So somebody will ask, seeds are natural, and so if we say a seed is poor, and so it will not help us farm perfectly, how come do we arrive at that? So what factors account for, poor seedlings before we come to the issue of agri-input?
Okay, so let me rate that your question to human relationship.
I see.
That's
a human relationship element.
So how come that you don't marry your sister or your sibling? People basically said that, because he's a blood related. That's the one part of the equation. Because you are closely related to each other. When you marry your cousin or your sister, your offspring, which are your children, will be what you call segregation. So there will be segregation in the family. You'll become more weaker. You understand? So when you look at, typically, when we are teaching genetics, we do use this example. When you look at our friends from Ashanti, the Ashantis are typically black, smallish people. Yeah. So their forefathers understand genetics from generation. So what they try to do is, okay, let our sisters marry our friends from the north. But they are already naturally, they are very giant people. So that's the crossbreeding. The same thing that we bring to the seed production too. We need to select the male and the female and then determine the outcome of that. The outcome is what the farmer is planting to have a better harvest. But the farmer doesn't have that technical eyes. So if the farmer chooses to go to market and buy anything, he may not be buying what actually fits for the purpose and give it a better yield. So that's the way for scientists and a seed company like mine to do.
So which part of the continuum are we to blame? Is it that maybe smallholder farmers are the ones bearing the brunt of it, or a cut across?
I think it's a collective responsibility. All the actors along the value chain, we never help the farmers to. So this seed we are talking, improved seed we are talking about, the science of the business of it did not start today. In 1950s, Ghana has a seed company. Kwame Nkrumah established.
What happened to it?
So, after the overthrow of Nkrumah, we turned everything and we are actually producing hybrid seed. So Nkrumah, even being a politician, understand that if agriculture have to move, it has to move on high quality seed, not anything. So he established those companies to produce that, but political issues in this country. After we overthrew him, then we decided to abandon everything.
I see. So we have been talking about seeds throughout this whole conversation since we started, but I want to also find out from you, in the value chain, what are some of the other agri-inputs that we must be careful about when we want to increase or even scale up our agri production? Okay,
so let's take it easy. The agri-input is actually, the economy of it is a foundation for successful food production and animal rearing. So let's put it in that context. And that compares all the natural resources or essential resources the farmer needs, like the seed, fertilizer, chemical, feed, irrigation, machines, equipment for land preparation, harvesting equipment or post-harvest equipment. All those are things that the farmer needs. For instance, let's say for fertilizer, for instance, is the one that actually powers the plants to grow in terms of nutrition of it. We live in a tropic, and our tropic, most of the soils are lacking in terms of some of the major nutrients and minor nutrients that we need. So the farmer needs seed, the same time he needs fertilizer, the same time he needs irrigation equipment in the area of climate change now. He also needs mechanization machines like the tractor, harvesters, all those things. But the same time he needs a storage system. And the last one we don't pay attention to is logistics, because the farmer needs to transport whatever he's harvesting from the farm to wherever the final destination. Those are the things as a farmer you have to take into consideration when you want to go to any agriculture venture.
So between the issue of, say, regulation and financing, which one will you say is affecting us when it comes to really understanding this agri-input and seed business?
I think the finance is actually the blood of everything.
So you think commercial banks do not really understand the concept of seed financing, so maybe they are not pushing a lot of funds in there?
You can't blame the bank necessarily 100% for that. I think we also, the farmers or the seed companies in this country, what time we also fed the bank. Some have taken loans from facilities from the bank. They defaulted. They did not pay. So the bank doesn't have an interest in loaning to the farmers, but maybe if somebody sells cocoa at the roadside, the bank wants to work with it, that person have a good record of repayment. So over time, we as a farmers, to as a seed business people, also fear the banks, the financial institution, not only the bank, but other financial institution. The second issue is that which they also have to think that they don't really understand the agriculture or the seed business on its own. Because with that, everything we are doing in this space will not move. Without the high quality seed and its availability and accessibility, all the things we are talking about will not even move.
And so based on your experience, do you think letting them understand, or we finding innovative financing models to cater for some of these things will suffice?
we have to have a brand. The farming activity needs to be formalized and standardized. Today, if you are an investor looking for a formalized system to invest your money, you will not get it if you are not careful. Because many of the farm enterprises we have in this country have not been registered. They have not been regulated. So that's a problem with the bank also. When you are going to a farmer who say I'm producing seed for 10 years now, you ask for 3 years audit report, you'll be surprised that you don't have it there. So in that case, you don't have any historical data for the bank to study to know where is your business starting from and where it's going in the near future for them to know what kind of facility that will work for you. So we need to actually run this business as a business, not a hobby anymore.
I see. We need to run this business as a business. I like that point. But, you know, last year we experienced some form of drought in parts of the country, and also there's this issue of climate change. Are we on course when it comes to developing resistant, seeds when it comes to issues of drought and even climate change, for example?
Yes, so we have fairly some few varieties of improved seeds against the disease and climate variability, but that is not enough. Research is a continual work and a very capital-intensive job we need to do. I think what we have to do is to put more resource into those development in order to avert. Last year you talk of droughts. The next time we will be talking of excess water, which is flood. The question will be asking ourselves that do we have a variety that can survive in water? Yeah, next time we'll be talking of high temperature. Maybe now we have a temperature of 35 and our crops are surviving. If the temperature gets to 40, 45, do we develop crops that will survive that high temperature? So the research is actually continuing, not what we did yesterday. What we did yesterday solved yesterday's problem. But we have to be thinking of solving tomorrow's problem.
Has technology or, let's say, government policies like planting for food and jobs, we also see government providing subsidies to farmers for agri input, for seeds, example, what's your sense? Are these things yielding the necessary result, or we have a long way to go?
No, I think the evidence outside there is visible for everybody. It's not for me to say whether the planting for food because it's a total failure. We spent 2.8 billion cedis importing seed into this country. But as I speak to you, government is still importing maize to feed the Ghanaian population. It tells you that if you spend 2.8 billion on a project like that in 8 years, and you are still importing one of your staple food, which is maize, to feed your citizens, then you don't need any word to describe that. You know obviously where we are heading to. But the point also is that it's not necessary for government to say I'm subsidizing seed and fertilizer. It's a good thing to do, but you have to find a way of doing it. I always said that when you want to be a medical doctor in this country and the world, you go to school and you always get certification to practice it. How can we, when somebody wanted to be a farmer in this country, they don't certify the farmer?
I see. So in your view, what's the missing link? Because I think we know what the problem is.
Now, if you are subsidizing a farmer, you don't even know, you don't have a database on the farmer. So after that, how do we track the masses and see, okay, the farmer used to get 1 bag. With the support I gave him, he's now moved from 1 bag to 3 bags. You understand? Because the farmers are not formalized, they are not. So the point is that today, if the farmer wants to plant maize, he knows the cost of the fertilizer, he knows the cost of seed, he obviously knows the cost of land preparation. But the point is, he doesn't know how much he's going to sell his maize or his tomatoes or pepper at harvest. You understand? Yeah. So one of the things we are missing there is that how come we are not setting the floor price for major commodity that we are having? Because I should be able to have a fair idea at the end of the day that this my pepper, if I harvest it, 1 kilo costs me this amount of money in the market. I shouldn't be in the mercy of the market queen, who at the end of the day will determine how much he or she wanted to buy that product. So if the state can take a policy in that area, we are doing it for cocoa and coffee and the rest. Why are we not doing it for maize, cassava and the rest?
It's getting interesting. This is the honor series of the Citi Business Festival 2025. Today we are trying to unpack the seed and agri input industry, how to make it more resilient and investable. My guest is Dr. Amos Rutherford Azinu, founder at Legacy Crop Improvement Center. We are not done. Stay with us. We'll be back and look at how Ghana can scale up its capacity. And of course, I'll give him some aspects of the agri value chain so that we get to know what farmers and prospective farmers will have to know when it comes to these things. Stay with us. Welcome back. This is the honor series of the Citi Business Festival 2025. I am Ni Latte. Dr. Amos Rutherford Azinu is my guest here, helping us really appreciate the issue of seeds and agri-input economy. So, Doc, before we went on that breather, you were talking about how government is doing a lot for cocoa, but areas like maize and other inputs are lagging behind. So my next question to you is that what seeds do you identify, or what input do you identify as our best bet, and which ones do you think have more prospects?
For instance, in terms of seed, we can do with maize, rice, okra, pepper, cowpea, sorghum, even millet. Those are the things we can produce here and we export to the neighboring countries. We don't need to import to this. You see, when you look at the global seed market today, it's over 70 billion United States dollars.
Yes, I think you mentioned that last time. You said we were doing about 2 billion.
Good.
Has
when you
it changed?
take Africa, if you take the whole Africa, that has 60% of the world arable land. Okay, our value or market value in that market is 2.4 billion United States dollars. So you ask yourself, what do you need to produce seed? It's land and water, which we have abundant in Africa, but we have not actually invested in that business. You are getting a point. So that's why we are still importing. Our vegetable seed in market in Ghana, for instance, is actually dead. We import everything, and that's the millions of dollars sitting there on top. We are looking at by just doing what normally called turn-around, where we buy and sell. We are more comfortable with that kind of system. So the state needs to partner with the private sector to engineer that. If it's something that we have to learn from COVID, is the disruption of the logistic in the global value chain. When the COVID happened, that's what happened to us. One of the things that sustained us is agriculture. For the period we are locked up. So it's something that we cannot play with. We have to be thinking of it. And how do we sustain this business? How do we take advantage of 70 billion United States dollar global market?
So this private sector support that you talk about, what form and shape should it take?
You know, when you go outside there and ask every person, farmer or seed producer, they will mention a lot of things to you. They will talk of finance, they talk of it. But if you ask me my candid opinion, is the problem is, one, poor managerial skills of the artists in the value chain. Second, is the weak financial architecture that we have. Because, as I said, you are talking to farm enterprises that have no proper record. They don't keep a data. How do we make a decision without the data in this global world that we are living today? And our financial institutions also don't understand. Our farming activity in this country mainly depend on donor grants. All the farming activity actually depend on donor facility which is not sustainable. So even I don't encourage government going out giving a support. For instance, let me give you an example. If you want to go into the farming and you said you need irrigation, government has a lot of irrigation facility in this country. All that government has to do is to allocate those lands to you to go and farm. If you say you need irrigation, the type of irrigation that we need, we can actually install it for you. We don't necessarily have to give you money. You know, typically as a black people, when you give people money, they will marry second wife. So you should be very careful. Very careful about this.
I see really interesting points, Doc, you make over there. But, you know, you've spoken about data, you've spoken about research. But I also want to bring in this element of, you know, we are in an era of AI, blockchain, and other form of technologies. How do you see these things playing out when it comes to, let's say, seed traceability, demand forecasting, and even the identification and targeting of farmers to benefit from some of these things?
Exactly. You are right. So we cannot do in our seed business now with that modern technology like the AI. Right now, you can just sit in your office when you plant 100 acres of seed. The technology can determine the output that you get at that harvest. You can do, which we don't used to have in the past until we do the harvesting. There are drones now you can fly to your farm that can tell you the stage of the maize in terms of because when the maize is in the cobs, you can't tell whether it's really mature for harvesting. But the system can do that. You can use the same block value chain for delivery. You know, logistics is one of the things we have not faced in this country in terms of delivering seed. My company used to deliver seed to neighboring countries in West Africa. It's a headache for us.
I see.
When you try, we are doing it, but the faster that you want, you will not get it the way you know, speed in delivering is part of our business. You will not get it, but you are thinking that, okay, if there are logistic companies that has cold chain, delivery. Because the seed have to be kept in a certain condition to guarantee its viability when the farmers are planting. Now, when you want to send it, you are sending to a car that is not a conditioned van and all those things, which we are afraid that when you get to the farm gate, it may lose its viability. That actually may affect your brand of seed.
And you lose the investment
you
thereof.
leave the investment thereof.
Interesting. So in 5 minutes, we are ending and concluding. I'm actually taken aback by the revelations you are making, but let's give ourselves some 5 elements in the agri-input value chain. For each of these elements that I give you, what should farmers know about them in 1 minute for each? So for example, when I say fertilizer, what are the misconceptions? What are the things farmers and prospective farmers should know about it?
So every farmer needs to, people say fertilizer is not good, it's bad. No. We are only helping the soil is supposed to provide those fertilizers to the plant, but because they have deteriorated over time, we are only empowering the soil to do that. But one of the things, misconception you have is that people think that every soil needs the same kind of fertilizer without doing soil analysis. Without the soil analysis, if you are just pouring fertilizer on the soil, you are wasting money. Because we need to understand the pH of the soil, you need to understand the organic matter content of the soil, water holding capacity of the soil. Those are the things every farmer needs to know to determine what kind of fertilizer did my soil need. The fact that he is using a certain type of fertilizer in his farm does not guarantee that my soil I'm also using have to.
So if I got increased yields because of the fact that I use this particular fertilizer, it doesn't mean that you must also...
Because your soil is different from my soil.
I see. What about irrigation?
Irrigation is actually the best insurance for farming these days. If you are farming, you don't have irrigation facilities, it's like gambling. You are only doing lotto. Okay. But the point is that irrigation infrastructure is very capital intensive, so very expensive. So every farmer needs to know what kind of crop you are growing and what kind of irrigation system you need to have. If you are going to grow a vegetable, let's say pepper or green pepper, you don't need central pivot system in your farm. Probably you need a drip irrigation or you need some flowery. If you are doing a rice farm, you also need a flowery irrigation. You don't need overhead irrigation system. So your crop and the type of soil you have will really determine the type of irrigation, and your water source will determine the type of irrigation that you will be having in your food.
Next is agrochemicals.
Another big industry. You know, we left agriculture for, in quote, uneducated people. So they are killing us by not understanding. You can do a farming where people tell you have to use pesticides. Pesticides are the chemicals that we use to control pests and insects in our farm. Some of the pesticides they are using are poison, but because they can't read on it. Every farmer needs to read the instruction of those pesticides and know exactly those chemicals are used for, at what stage. They are chemicals that when, let's say you grow okra and they are in the fruiting stage, you are not supposed to use. But they use it and harvest. The next day they harvest the fruit and we are consuming it.
On the market.
So they need to understand that, and volume that you have to use per what quantity of water.
It's also crucial.
It's very, very crucial. Sometimes they are missing it and the chemical is more than the water. So it's highly concentrated.
And even the application, they get it wrong at times.
They are not wearing their gloves, they are not in their protective gloves, all those things, which means that they are also exposing themselves to the chemical, which is a health hazard they'll be suffering from.
What about machinery?
Very essential for modern farming and food security, because now we don't have a labor. We cannot use the labor to be cultivated 50, 100, and 500 acres. But you also need to know what kind of crop you are doing, what tools that will be needed. So for instance, if your farm is not even a large farm, for instance, I always tell people, if you have a 20-acre farm or 50-acre farm, you don't need to buy a tractor, for instance, because that's too small for you to own that machine, unless you have a system of using it to work for other people. Probably your best point is to say, I'm going to rent it to come and work for me, and I pay off, then it goes away. Then you look at your harvesting. Will I need machine for harvesting my crop, threshing, post-harvest issues, all those things, and storage? Did I need a system to keep those things? Those are the things you need to do all these things from the beginning, not in the middle of farming. You need to have all this plan. This is how I'm going to harvest my crop. I will need machine. I will need A, B, C, D. So you don't get to the system before you are looking for those kind of systems. Other than if you don't have the finance or capital to do it, it becomes very difficult for you.
That's part of the investment choice. And so my final one will be on, let's say, animal feed. Is it something that plays a key role in
very,
the
you know, the best response to the feed at a certain stage, there are feed that you have to give. and the balance, the ratio is very, very crucial. If one is bigger than, in terms of missing, let's say you have a layers, and you are giving them the broilers feed, you can determine what we are getting. You will not get the kind of eggs that you need. There are vaccines that you have to provide them at a certain stage, which you need to do at the right time, not the time that you want it. That's the reason why you cannot be a proper animal farmer and be a scientist farmer. You have to be there. You know, in our
so you
culture,
can't sit in Accra, your family is in Kumasi, or let's say somewhere in the northern region, and then you are not visiting, you don't know what is going on.
You need to have a very honest farm manager. If you have a bad one, I can guarantee you that investment will be in waste.
Will go down the drain. Okay. So my final question to you, Doc. I mean, we've spoken at length, and I think we have not even exhausted the whole issues. But what is your message to prospective farmers, policymakers, those who are practicing now, the government? How do you make Ghana a hub when it comes to seed management, development, and even the agri-input value chain? What's that one thing that we need to know as a nation? Can we capitalize on it to push the Africa agenda?
I think we have a unique opportunity. Our lands are very good. We have abundant water. But what we have not looked is the investment to empower that sector that we have not done. And most of the time, what we have done for ourselves is to think that when we throw money at a problem, the problem is solved. We end up creating more trouble for ourselves. I always tell people that the best approach to learn is to be apprentice. If somebody wanted to be a seed producer, or like I will tell you point blank that you have to come and do internship with a company that is worth doing, because there are things that they are doing now that you are thinking that is good. The same time they are doing that there are things that they are doing that is not good. You can learn so that when you are about to do your own, you will be able to do it. If you enter the farming today and thinking that, oh, people are making money, I can guarantee a lot of people are bending their hands because they have not really studied and understand the ecosystem very well.
It's never a dull moment with Dr. Amos Rutherford Azinu, founder at Legacy Crop Improvement Center, a plant breeder, as well as a seed business executive. But that's how we wrap up on this edition of the Honor Series of the Citi Business Festival on understanding the seed and agri-input industry. At least we know that farming goes beyond just the land, the fertilizer, and the technology. Thank you so much, Doc, for giving us this particular insight when it comes to the subject matter. I am Nilati Lati. Thank you so much for joining us. See you some other time. The Honor Series and the Citi Business Festival is brought to you by 97.3 Citi FM and Channel 1 TV. We are sponsored by Absa Bank Ghana Limited, MTN Ghana, and Zondatech Ghana Limited. Catch you